Good day, everyone. This is Eagle News. I am Rose Papa Angeles in Washington. It's Saturday, January 8, 2022, here in the nation's capital. And here are this week's stories. Arlene Ocampo reports about inches of snow blanketing the mid-Atlantic region of the U.S. on the first week of the new year. Alan and Eva Basayahe take us to the 133rd Tournament of Roses Parade celebrating 2022 with the theme Dream, Believe, Achieve. Myla Simbulan reports about the latest CDC booster shot eligibility expansion. Ashley Sakmar reports about Ontario, Canada tightening restrictions as Omicron cases surge in the province. Thomas Likeness tells us about the peril that Omicron brings, President Joe Biden blaming former President Donald Trump for the January 6th insurrection, and the winter storm that had many in the Mid-Atlantic area disrupted and some not so much. Those stories on this week's Correspondent at Large. For this week's Window to Latin America, May Davila tells us about Panama reducing the period for the application of anti-COVID booster shots to 3 months and will start vaccinating children from 5 to 11 years old. For Oceania at a Glance, the Filipino Association in Papua New Guinea, or FAPNUNG, concludes the year 2021 with a basketball tournament. Our Hawaii Bureau gives us a recap of stories our team there covered in 2021. That's for this week's Pacific Updates. For Color My World, Jane Kathleen Gregorio shares with us her conversation with veterinarian pathologist, military officer, and nonprofit leader Dr. Michelle Jefferson as they talk about crushing our goals like a boss. Plus, a crossover segment for Behind the Counter as Aika Ira is joined by the Team Oceania's Jenaline Despy for her version of one of Australia's favorites, mini sausage rolls. Our coverage begins now. Residents of the U.S. Mid-Atlantic region started the New Year's first work week shoveling and digging themselves out of snow as winter storm disrupts work and school. In Washington, Bureau Chief Arlene Ocampo reports.
The East Coast and Mid-Atlantic, rain has turned into snow over much of the Washington, D.C. region Monday morning. Many residents of the nation's capital stare out their windows to take in the view of the year's first snowfall. The weather condition makes for tricky commutes for those who still had to go into work.
And my experience during the snowstorm was horrible. No power, no hot water, and I couldn't get my car out to get to work, and 95 was actually shut down.
Well, the office closed early. I went home around 1 o'clock. The storm had stopped, but most of the roads were like ice covered. It was very hard to drive and manage. I think it took me almost an hour to get home.
So my immediate reaction was the dangers of driving to and from work for those who have to go to work like me, who are considered mission essential in their workplace. When I left work, it was just raining and none of the roads were salted or treated, and it was sleeting, so travel already was dangerous and slow. I didn't realize that it was going to snow heavily that day, to the point where I couldn't get home from work because the interstate was blocked off.
This storm has impacted people during and even after the snowfall. It left many without power for days. Dozens of motorists were gridlocked on the Beltway, Interstate 95, for 27 hours. No casualties were reported. A few days later, another winter weather advisory has been released for the Washington and Baltimore metropolitan areas, portions of central and southern Maryland, and portions of northern Virginia, warning of snow accumulations of 2 to 4 inches and high amounts of up to 6 inches in isolated areas. Local commutes were not the only ones affected by heavy snow and rainfall. Airline travelers were left waiting for hours at airports throughout the country as inclement weather has disrupted scheduled flights. According to flight tracking website FlightAware, nearly 3,500 flights Monday, the first workday of 2022, were already canceled as of 9:45 a.m., including 2,000 U.S. flights or international ones starting or finishing in the United States. These cancellations were in addition to the 2,700 U.S. flights canceled Sunday and 2,750 grounded on Saturday. Arlene Ocampo, Eagle News, Washington.
Thanks, Arlene, and please stay warm. Now let's head over to where the weather is a little friendlier, California. Power couple Eva and Alan Basayahe take us to this year's Tournament of Roses parade, where dreaming, believing, and achieving is just one float away. Take a look.
2022 has finally arrived, and what better place to greet the new year than at the 133rd Rose Parade presented by Honda.
And what better way to kick off the celebration than with a performance by Grammy Award-winning artist and Masked Singer Season 4 winner, Leanne Rimes.
The Masked Singer, they got a float parked right around the corner.
Making the 5.5-mile route down Colorado Boulevard are equestrian units.
Over a dozen of them.
Marching bands.
Over a dozen of them.
And floats.
Over 24 of them. And speaking of, one of the float designers shares his insight about the science and artistry involved in the float making process.
Designing Rose Parade floats is like a relay race, and I'm the first one out of the gate with the design. Then it goes to our welders, our engineer, to make sure that the whole thing can be built. It's carpenters, floral designers who figure out all the colors I chose. What is it in nature that they can use to match those colors? And on top of that, they add texture to the float. Every surface has to be covered with natural materials. That's part of the rules. Another rule, too, for the Pasadena Rose Parade is all the floats have to have roses on them somewhere. So we make sure that all of our floats, the roses are predominant on the float. It's not just designing a float, but we're designing a show since it's a parade. And so we like to have entertainment that goes along with the floats. So that's part of the design as well. Very often it may be dancers accompanying the floats, or singers sometimes, or just people that are important on the float that are waving to everyone along Colorado Boulevard. I believe that I stopped growing up at 12 years old. To design a float out of nothing, it's like experiencing life as a child. Everything's new and it's the first time. So when I create a float, it's the first time. And using bright colors and friendly shapes and friendly flowers, people can't help but be moved in good ways. It's the same experience as visiting a theme park. It's bright. It's not something you see every day. So it makes it a very unique experience to see a parade, whether it's on television or even better up close in person.
This year's parade theme is Dream, Believe, Achieve, referencing the power and importance of education.
And just what are some of the dreams that people have for themselves or for the world that they believe they can and will achieve?
We hear from attendees about this and about all other matters pertaining to the Rose Parade.
I grew up watching the Rose Parade on television, and it's just surreal to be here in person and have the opportunity to see the floats live and cheer on our team.
Actually, I'm visiting my brother, and it's been like over 8 years since I'm here. And this is my first time in Rose Parade. For me, it's like once in a lifetime. I'm a visitor here, so it is excited rather than watching from TV, right?
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever been here to Pasadena in general, first time Rose Parade. It was really incredible. It was an incredible experience.
Ohio State has been selected to play in the game and come into the Rose Bowl, and the Rose Parade has been on my bucket list for a really long time. Ohio State is definitely going to win today.
Our daughter was supposed to perform last year, but they didn't have it. So this year is gonna be awesome.
We've been decorating the floats since our kids were in baby strollers. So since our kids were in kindergarten. And now we both have, our first kids are in college and our other kids are in high school. And it's my first time being at the parade, so I've watched it on TV my whole life. And now my son is in one of the marching bands.
Marching bands provides an opportunity for students to show all the hard work that they do for their instruments. It provides a lot of excitement and joy for all of the parade goers. The music gets everybody going along the parade route.
One of the best things that we saw actually was, I think, one of our drum majors on Bandfest Day. It's pouring down rain, which it never does in Southern California. Thankfully, we've got a good day for it today. But one of our drum majors was still standing there and just, finishes up the particular tune that they're on and just has this giant grin on his face. He's so happy to be there. He's so excited. That's what they all do. They're so fired up for this kind of thing. This is what they love, and it's just amazing to see.
I think my favorite one was, there was one with an ostrich on it, and the ostrich was flying. I thought it was really cute. I like animals, so.
I think to really understand the feeling you get by being here versus at home watching is you get to experience the energy of all the people from locals, sometimes around the world. And it's this really great energy that everybody's really positive and happy to be together, be here.
Being here in person is completely different from watching it on TV. There's a lot of people like camping out as we walked. Before we got into the stand area, there were a lot of people sleeping out, camping out on the sidewalks overnight. Here, the energy is just electric. And once the floats start, you can really smell the roses on those floats. Cannot smell the roses on TV.
I loved when I heard the thing was dream, believe, achieve. It's something for you in a lifetime, a continuum, whether you're in grade school, middle school, high school, college, and beyond, in retirement. I dream. Recently lost my mom, who was 101 several months ago, and this is a chance for me, having been her caregiver for a lot of years, to start a new dream, to believe and achieve.
Big dream of mine that I think we can achieve, like as a world, is kind of just like re-implementing love into like the foundation of society, because like I feel like we look around the world and there's so much discourse and stuff, but like there can be discourse as long as you have love under it, because without the love it's just going to be like fighting and bickering all the time.
Kindness is a big thing, just basic kindness. You don't see a lot of that now, just that like basic kindness and understanding for people and a genuine care. So that's kind of a dream of mine.
The dream is like, especially for the children, like they come here and then they get inspired. They're looking at their friends, their peers, and the adults, and then it just gives them encouragement to be brave, to know that they can reach whatever they dream on.
Rolling into a new year just marks a new opportunity for us to re-engage, to address our goals, and really to come back together as a community. I think we've been so fragmented because of the pandemic. It's good to start putting that behind us and to come together, and I think the world is in desperate need of that now, more so than ever before. So we look forward to an incredible 22 and wish your viewers the same.
I echo that sentiment.
As the final float disappears from view, our team is suddenly reminded that Eva spent the majority of last night composing a short but heartfelt greeting just for our viewers. So, what do you have to say?
Happy New Year, everybody.
Well, sometimes the classics really are the best. In Pasadena, California, Eva and Alan, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thanks, Eva and Alan. What a way to welcome 2022. In other news, to have optimized protection against COVID-19 and the Omicron variant, kids ages 12 to 17 may now receive their COVID-19 booster shots 5 months after the initial Pfizer-BioNTech vax series. We have Myla Simbulan with the details.
Thank you. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has endorsed the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP's recommendation to expand eligibility of booster doses to those 12 to 15 years old. The CDC now recommends that adolescents aged 12 to 17 years old should receive a booster shot 5 months after the initial Pfizer-BioNTech vaccination series. Data show that COVID-19 boosters help broaden and strengthen protection against Omicron and other SARS-CoV-2 variants. The CDC says ACIP has reviewed the available safety data following the administration of over 25 million vaccine doses in adolescents and that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. At this time, only the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine is authorized and recommended for adolescents aged 12 to 17. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says it is critical that children and teens are protected from COVID-19 infection and the complications of severe disease. Dr. Walensky endorses ACIP's vote to expand eligibility and strengthens recommendations for booster doses. She says the health agency recommends that all adolescents aged 12 to 17 years old should receive a booster shot 5 months after their primary series. Walensky says this booster dose will provide optimized protection against COVID-19 and the Omicron variant. She encourages all parents to keep their children up to date with CDC's COVID-19 vaccine recommendations. Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
In related news, as Omicron cases surge in Ontario, the province returned to step 2 of its reopening plan, which means tightening its restrictions once again. In Toronto, Ashley Sakmar reports.
This past Wednesday, January 5th, Ontario, Canada returned back to step 2 of reopening, a long-term plan that the province had set in 2021 to slowly transition back to normal. However, after the recent extreme rise in COVID-19 cases within the province, Ontario is once again reducing the limit capacity and closing indoor access to many public places. Most of Ontario's public space limit is currently at 50% capacity, with no indoor access to places such as restaurants, cinemas, museums, gyms, and the like. All public and private schools will move to online learning, awaiting further updates from the province's Ministry of Education. Since July 16, 2021, Ontario was in Stage 3 of the plan to reopen. In October last year, officials had released the full plan, with a projected vision of lifting all limits by March 2022. However, the plan to exit Stage 3 of reopening came to a halt in November, which continued on throughout December after the arrival of the Omicron variant in Ontario and the extreme rise in cases during the winter months. Evolving data shows that the Omicron variant may be less severe than prior strains. However, with 30 mutations in its spike protein, it is proving to be a highly transmissible variant even amongst those who are fully vaccinated. The rise of cases escalated quickly during this past holiday season, and as of Monday this week, the total number of active cases in Ontario is 130,307, with Omicron being the most frequent variant in the province. In Toronto, Ashley Sakmar, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thanks, Ashley. Omicron brings peril, says the World Health Organization, as the most recent variant spreads faster than any other COVID strain. Plus, in his insurrection anniversary speech, President Joe Biden blames former President Donald Trump for the January 6 event. These and more from Thomas I. Leibniz, our correspondent at large.
I really didn't want to begin the year talking about COVID, Omicron, or any other variant, but as we're well into the 5th wave of the pandemic, we can't hide from it. Not talking about it isn't going to make it go away. And we have another dire warning from the World Health Organization. Catherine Smallwood, she says, we're in perilous times now as Omicron spreads.
We're still at a phase where the virus is evolving quickly. the more it spreads, the more it transmits, and the more it replicates, the more likely it is to throw out a new variant. Now, Omicron is lethal. It can cause death. It can cause hospitalization, maybe a little bit less than Delta. But who's to say what the next variant might throw out?
Just what we need, another variant. And there will be more to come until we get enough of the world's population immunized. Smallwood admits that's going to be a challenge.
The protection against severe disease of the vaccines that we have available to us is still really good. And so that means that vaccination is really keeping people outside of hospitals as much as we can expect. And that's really good news. So the impact will be hardest in those countries that don't have high levels of population immunity, particularly in people who are over 60 or who have other chronic diseases. And that's where we're going to see the real brunt of this very, very rapid spread of Omicron.
I heard a very sobering comment this week from a doctor here in Edmonton. His remarks about the unvaccinated, and these are his words: either get vaccinated or get a good life insurance policy. You know, we all got to go sometime, but I don't want to die just because I entrusted my health care to some internet quack instead of someone who actually studied medicine. Let's move on. It was just over a year ago that we watched in horror as protesters rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. They were attempting to overthrow the 2020 election results, which saw former President Donald Trump defeated. Marking the one-year anniversary last Thursday, President Joe Biden blamed Trump for the insurrection. Biden calls it a self-centered attempt by Trump to hang on to power.
And here's the truth. The former President of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election. He's done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest as more important than his country's interest, than America's interest.
Now, Biden never mentioned Trump by name, only referred to him several times as the former president. For his part, Trump had planned a news conference on Thursday to mark the one-year anniversary of the event. Reportedly, he was going to defend his supporters who rioted as Congress was set to confirm the election results. A couple of days before the anniversary, Trump canceled the event. Why? Well, these are his words in a statement he released on Tuesday. In light of the total bias and dishonesty of the January 6th Unselect Committee of Democrats, 2 failed Republicans, and the fake news media, I am canceling the January 6th press conference. But you know, he couldn't keep quiet. After President Biden's speech, the former president released a statement, Trump calling the speech political theater, and again he repeated his lies that the election was rigged. A weather story now. My colleagues in the eastern United States, in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and several other areas, well, they found themselves digging out of several inches of snow as the new year began. You know, for us up here in Canada, just another winter day. What you see here on the screen is a typical commute in Edmonton during a winter storm. You know, the snow pile in my backyard is more than 4 feet high right now. But for folks not used to it, quite a challenge. Here's what it looked like in the nation's capital. Not a lot of fun as people had to dig out of this. You know, there were some enjoying it, though. Look at these panda cubs. They're at the Washington Zoo. They just can't get enough of the white stuff. Rolling and sliding down the hills. I would imagine some kids in the nation's capital were having the same kind of fun. I'm going to go back out now to finish clearing the snow around my house. Until next week, Thomas I. Likeness, correspondent at large, Eagle News.
Thank you, Thomas. In Panama, the Republic's health agency reduces the rollout time for administering booster shots to 3 months. Plus, it has now announced availability of COVID vaccination shots for kids ages 5 to 11. For this week's Window to Latin America, May Davila reports.
A day after the first case of the Omicron variant was reported in Panama, the president of the country, Laurentino Cortizo, immediately announced that the rollout time for booster doses will be reduced to 3 months.
Prior to this, the Ministerio de Salud or MINSA has established a period of 6 months to apply the booster dose after the second shot. The MINSA informs that to date, a total of 55 cases of the Omicron variant have been confirmed. With this current COVID-19 situation in the country, and after the arrival of the 60,000 doses of pediatric vaccines against COVID-19 from the pharmaceutical company Pfizer on January 2, health authorities have announced the schedule of vaccination for children from 5 to 11 years old. This vaccination process will be carried out in parallel to the vaccination days with the first, second, and booster dose applied to the adult population throughout the country. January 7, Friday, marked the start of the vaccination process against COVID-19 for children ages 5 to 11 in national and regional hospitals located in the provincial capital and in all private hospitals that support the Panavac 19 strategy. The first batch is allotted for the vulnerable population with chronic diseases, immunosuppressive pathologies, oncologic pathologies, HIV, children with obesity, morbidity, and with disabilities such as severe motor disabilities, Down syndrome, autism, among others. After this, the vaccination by circuits will begin based on the number of cases registered week by the Department of Epidemiology of the Ministerio de Salud. The Pfizer-BioNTech pediatric vaccine is different from the one administered to the rest of the population. The vial, the color of the vial, and the amount of the dose are not the same. Children aged 5 to 11 years will receive only 1/3 of the dose given to an adult, 10 micrograms instead of 30 micrograms. There is a goal to cover the greatest number of children before the school year begins on March 7. Classes for the academic year 2022 has been announced to be in person after 2 years of being online. Although the disease is usually mild and asymptomatic most of the time, MINSA explains that they are giving the green light to vaccinate to reduce infections in this group and avoid transmission in family and educational settings. This is in addition to protecting them against eventual serious cases or persistent COVID.
The government states that parents still have the last say in deciding whether or not to vaccinate their children. May Davila, Window to Latin America, Eagle News.
Thanks, May. In Papua New Guinea, basketball enthusiasts got together for some fun games to end 2021. Here's Echo Hortaleza Quinola for Oceania at a Glance.
The Filipino Association of Papua New Guinea, or FAPNAng, resumed its battle in sports with the recent pandemic games 2K Medical Cup. After a month break due to COVID restrictions, the event finally pushed through with the championship games and awarding of the winners held at FAPNAng Clubhouse. Headed by the officers of the association, the sports competition brought back the excitement and enthusiasm of our kababayans to take part in this activity. The highlight of the event was the basketball championship for Category B Eagle Division. Team Titans won over Digital Billboard Panthers with a 3-point lead with a score of 84 points against 81 points. Meanwhile, in Category C Hawks Division, Sammy Lodge Slashers Reborn made 89 points that defeated Gems Chemical, who garnered 83 points. In Category B All-Star Division, Edison Steadfast Engineering was hailed the winner with a great difference of 35 points lead over the wine merchant Kabayan Store. The final score was 90 points against 55 points.
Another season, lalaro ulit ang Titans. I-defend namin sana. Masaya ngayon ang Titans dahil sa loob ng 7 years, makakuha namin ang kampeonato. And ang preparation na ginawa namin is mostly ano lang naman, emotional preparation kasi lang kami.
Maverick Soriano, the PRO of FAPNAM, said that this event was a success regardless of the struggles and difficulties they've met along the way. They are all looking forward for a better 2022 full of activities, hope, and enthusiasm for our kababayans living in Papua New Guinea.
We do so happy that FAPNAM Council organized a game like this. Though we have difficulties on our pandemic that happened, but fortunately we're able to finish this. And though we have a hard time, we still finish with a success. What we are looking forward for this 2022 is we are more better, bigger, and we will give more events like this. We will give more passion to serve and at the same time to make sure that the FAPNAM will be stable.
During this pandemic, bringing Filipinos together in healthy competitions signifies how we truly respect, value, and love our cultural roots. FAPNAM officers are now ready to welcome 2022 with staging more events, fundraising activities, and projects in the pipeline. May our 2022 be the best year ever. Happy New Year to one and all. Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Oceania at a Glance, Eagle News.
Thanks, Echo. Speaking of ending 2021 today, we get to revisit stories from our teams in Hawaii and the Pacific during the past year. Alfred Asenas for this week's Pacific Updates.
Aloha, I'm Alfred Asenas, and here are just some of the highlights of this year from Hawaii and the Pacific.
A solar flare is due to hit the Earth and is expected to disrupt both cellular and radio signals.
Nakapag-harvest po sila dito ng mga bulaklak. Ngayon ay yan ang makikita natin. Tinangay na.
And there was also a bunch of sheds that were knocked over and really disassembled from the winds. So it was a really busy morning at work for us.
Kuya, hindi na ako makapagkuha. Nasa roadside na ako. Nagta-traffic at saka nag-aasikaso ng mga bata.
The members of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo believe in taking care of our health so that we can continue in our worship and services to the Almighty God.
Also that there are people out here that are still willing to do the acts of kindness, because not so many people know about that.
When we complete this project, it will showcase not only to the church member but throughout the neighborhood.
This is a message for Brother Eduardo Manalo. We want to thank you on behalf of the State Senate and the State House.
Commemorate the 20th year remembrance of 9/11. That we pause and reflect upon the cherished liberty that we have as a free people. We honor our fallen heroes. We salute the dedicated men and women that currently serve in the different branches of the United States military.
Stay tuned for more in the coming new year right here on Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Alfred. At the start of every year, many people try to make optimistic New Year's resolution to be healthier, happier, more productive. Unfortunately, a number of these goals fall by the wayside not long after. Today on Color My World, veterinarian, pathologist, military officer, and nonprofit groups leader Dr. Michelle Jefferson, well, what is she not? Shares with us her advice for staying focused and crushing our New Year's goals like a boss. Jean Kathleen Gregorio with the story.
While the new year often inspires people to make new plans and resolutions, oftentimes these goals fall by the wayside not too long after. Today, we spoke to Dr. Michelle Jefferson, a woman who wears many hats in her career field, as she shares her advice on how to stay on track and make goals more achievable.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Jefferson. I am the Chief of Comparative Pathology with the military. I work at Fort Sam Houston, and I also am the president of two different nonprofit organizations. The first is with my church, Christian Medical Dental Paramedical Society. The second is with a veteran service organization called The Rocks. It's the San Antonio chapter. It's actually, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary of our chapter, and we promote diversity and inclusion. Because I wear so many hats, organization is crucial to manage my time. As you know, time is a limited resource, and they say time is money. Let's talk New Year's resolutions. Well, I'll tell you, everyone every year always wants to start off with goals, and they always want to plan. A lot of people, beginning of the year, want to lose weight. They started off, every good intention is to go to the gym. They start off wanting to eat well, and then, I don't know, maybe a month or two later, they don't do it. So why? Well, I'll tell you, about 92% of the population don't attain their goals because maybe they're not realistic enough. Maybe you try to lose too much weight or try to do too much too soon. I don't know. Let's think about that. So I will say, in order to do great goal planning, you need to make sure that you really know the why behind what you're trying to attain, right? So why, think of 3 whys and why you're trying to do something. Every year, my sister jumps on the scale. Sorry, sis. I have 3, so I'm not gonna say which one, but she jumps on a scale and she's like, weight loss challenge. Do you wanna do it for a healthy living? Are we doing it just to look better? Are we doing it just to the competition of who can lose the most weight? So really dive deep and just really think about why are you trying to lose the weight? So I think when you get into the whys of things, then you really can achieve your goal. After you have your whys, writing it down and then sticking through. I always say, you have your couple of goals. I say no more than 8 goals a year. If you have too many goals and you're trying to track too many things, you can't achieve it, right? You'll be scattered all over the place, or you'll procrastinate because you're trying to overplan. And then breaking those goals down and trying to achieve them through quarters. So for example, if you have so many goals a year and trying to tackle them in bite-sized pieces, then you can truly attain them. And in the quarter, if you have 2 goals, then throughout the month or 3 months, how do you attain them, and then writing down how you're going to achieve them, and then tracking your progress. And really, you got to write things down, start, but don't overwhelm yourself with too many. So, and being able to achieve them is by starting, right? And writing it down, and then just tracking your progress. And then also, sometimes, depending on what your goals are, working together as a team is helpful too. Because it's always fun to do things together and having another person as accountability. So for me, because I have a busy life, and I think as I've gotten older, I started off with just a simple calendar. We talked about a simple planner. There are several other planners, and there's one that I wanted to recommend. It's called the Full Focus Planner. And so what I love about it, here's a blank when I'm starting it off. Like I said, you can write down, it tracks your annual goals. You can list it, but within it, it actually breaks each goal in detail of how the summary of each goal breaks down what are your key motivations. Remember I told you your whys, how you're going to solve it, how you're going to track it, right? Your next steps. Because in order to start, you have to figure out, okay, if I'm going to do this month, this is what I'm going to do. The next month, this is what I'm going to do. It talks about the steps. And then, your rewards, because you have to reward yourself, right? Maybe your reward is I'm going to go on that fabulous vacation. That's why I'm losing the weight. Or my reward is I'm going to decrease my cholesterol because that's the reason why I'm losing the weight, right? So we talk about the whys. Why are we doing things? So this is why I love this book, because it keeps you on target and it keeps you organized. So, and it writes down these things that we're talking about. So you don't have to get this planner. You can make your own or just get a different planner, whatever is manageable for you. If you think about it in life, a lot of us, depending on your family, you may only live to be 80 plus years, 90 years. Betty White lived to the age 99. And that means it's a limited resource, right? So I'm only but 21 years of age, just kidding, I'm a little bit older than that. The realistic thing is, I might be young in heart, but I'm, only but so many years age, and my parents are so many years of age. And if you have kids at home, they're only at home for like 18, 17 years. So you only have a finite number of years. So this year, as you decide to do more goal setting, make sure that you look at your career, your family, your health, spirituality. Make it more meaningful and make it count.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Color My World, Eagle News.
Thanks, Jane Kathleen and Dr. Jefferson. Now, Aika Ira is joined today by Teams Oceania's Jeneline Despy with her version of mini sausage rolls. Put on your aprons and let's get to work, because it's time for the first crossover episode for Behind the Counter.
Hey, I'm Aika, and welcome back to Behind the Counter, where we see easy and tasty meals be brought to life. I hope you're all having a great start to this new year. On this special episode, we have our very first guest, an EBC correspondent all the way from Australia, Jeneline Despy, to show us how to make sausage rolls.
Sausage rolls are famous and preferred snacks by many people of all ages here in Australia. You can stroll around the malls and head towards the food court, and you'll surely find a diner or a food stand selling sausage rolls, alongside with beef pies, quiche, and other savory pastries. But sometimes, we also want to try recreating this food at home. Now please allow me to share with you this simple recipe of mini sausage rolls. Let's just add some Pinoy touch on this recipe by including some veggies on it. And here are the ingredients. Half a kilo of minced beef, a cup of finely chopped cabbage, a cup of grated carrots, a tablespoon of minced garlic, a finely chopped onion, a cup of breadcrumbs, an egg, half cup of flour, salt, pepper, and of course the 3 sheets of puff pastry. The first step is mixing all the ingredients except the pastry. That means we combine the beef, cabbage, carrots, garlic, onion, breadcrumbs, egg, flour, salt, and pepper in a bowl. Make sure that we thoroughly mix them so the taste and flavor are evenly distributed. Then set this aside. Proceed to making the egg wash by combining a cup of milk with an egg. Again, set aside. Now it's time to move on to the puff pastry. Remember that a frozen pastry must be thawed first. On the other hand, the oven should be preheated to 180 degrees Celsius. Get 1 sheet of pastry and put an estimated portion of mixed ingredients on the utmost side. Then fold that side until the mixture is well covered. Make sure that you brush a bit of egg wash on the other side of the pastry to fully lock the fold. Subsequently, cut the excess part of pastry sheet. Then repeat the same process on the remaining sheets and mixture. Carefully slice each long roll into 5, thus producing 5-liter rolls. Put a baking paper or aluminum foil on a tray and line up the mini rolls with uniform space. Brush the top of each roll with egg wash. Put the tray inside the oven and bake the mini rolls for approximately 30 minutes or until they are well cooked. This mini sausage roll can be served in any occasion. May this be on a simple snack time or during special occasions, partnered with either hot or cold beverages. Certainly, a sausage roll is an in-demand snack here in Australia and in other parts of the world.
Janalyn Despi, OceaniaAtAGlance, Eagle News.
Thanks, Janalyn. Those look delicious. Check back here for full recipes, and if there's a dish that you'd like to see, let us know in the comments below. Catch us on EagleNewsLive.com, on our Eagle News YouTube channel, and our Facebook page. Check back next week when we go Behind the Counter.
Thanks, Ika and Janalyn. And happy wedding anniversary to our Calgary Bureau Chief J.C. Yumel and his wife Carla May. More happy years ahead. And once again, thank you all for watching. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I am Rose Papa Angeles. Stay warm and enjoy your weekend, everyone.